Hello, welcome back. I'm Byron. This is Sid Meier's Civilization 3 Conquest. Had to think about it for a minute, even though I haven't done any other games. We're playing the Rise of Rome scenario as the Macedonians, and we're having fun doing it. Got to take this city, and I can cut a swath basically straight to Persepolis, cutting the empire in half, even 3 parts maybe, which would be good. And I have an army. I should at some point create another one. Just that's what happens in this game, in this scenario. Usually throughout your war you get at least one more leader, which helps with the so you can create another army and go around, and that's always fun. We got a worker. It was a little annoying in Civ 6 when it says another's folly has become your another's ignorance has become their misfortune, something like that, where whenever you capture worker it pops up. This one just has a little bar on top that tells you what happened. That's nice. Anyway, looks like I've almost caught up to him in score, and I think a couple more cities I will have him. And we're doing a top 10 list today, but first a quick update on the last top 10 list. Taylor Swift just released a new song, and it is not going to break the top 10. So when I did her videos, the top 10 Taylor Swift songs, whatever that was, it still stands. About this song though, I think she deliberately dropped it at the exact moment when it would have hurt to insult Katy Perry the most. But anyway, today's top 10 list is the top 10 Star Wars movies. Depending on how you count them, there may have been exactly 10. There's a pretty cool video that you can go watch about the Ewoks movies. Those are not being counted. However, what is being counted is number 10, the Star Wars Holiday Special. Haven't seen it, know it's bad, so it's just number 10. Number 9, The Clone Wars. It's a very good movie. People thought, I remember when the Clone Wars movie came out, it came out at the same time as The Force Unleashed. The Force Unleashed, the video game. The video game came out that week about the same time. And before that, Star Wars movies would come out every 3 years. 1999, 2002, 2005. And this happened in 2008, which is sort of continuing that tradition. Both these were the sort of the 3-year mark of a Star Wars, I guess, push into the popular culture. And both of these happened at the same time as sort of multimedia franchises. I was really into the books at that time. I read the novels. I read both novels. And both novels were not very good. And it was only later, after I read the novels, that I both watched the Clone Wars movie and played the Force Unleashed video games. Anyway, back at the time, people thought the Force Unleashed was getting a lot of praise, and the Clone Wars movie was getting a lot of hate. And it's totally reversed now. Everyone loves the Clone Wars and Rebels and everything Dave Filoni. And the Force Unleashed, who cares? So it was a great movie. And see, who had a great movie at number 9. So it's only going to go up from here. And so, number 8, maybe a surprise, Rogue One. So, Rogue One was good. I really wish I could have put the Clone Wars ahead of Rogue One, but I just couldn't do it. Rogue One is too good a movie. And I think they put all the stops for Rogue One, and I think the rest of the anthology movies might not be as good as the Clone Wars. And I think on average, the Clone Wars movie is better than what the anthology movies are going to be. And in fact, when I first heard they were making anthologies, I assumed they were going to be animated. That's how good the Clone Wars was. That I just assumed they were going to be animated, and that's how they're going to deal with Han not being Han for the Han Solo movie and all that stuff. But instead, they did what they did. Anyway, number 7. Probably shocked that Rogue One was not better than this movie. But, and you probably noticed that it's episode 1 is number 7. All the saga films are now the top 7. I don't hate episode 1. I don't hate Jar Jar. I love Jar Jar. He's a regular rabbit who lives under the sea. How is that not to be loved? And it's just a cool movie. I think it was at one point my dad's favorite because he likes Liam Neeson. And it has Liam Neeson. It's a pretty good movie. I mean, people talk about how they hate politics, but there was politics in the original movies. You just don't remember them anymore. You just sort of pass over it. There's a big scene where they talk about regional governors in the first Star Wars movie. You're telling me that's not... You're telling me talking about this about trade disputes is more boring than that? It's not. You're being ridiculous. And it's a good movie. I loved the Gungan battle. That was pretty cool with the balls. How did I not love that? And they were under the sea. They never did that in a Star Wars movie, and it's cool. And at the time it was released, it was amazing. I mean, you have to admit that if you're one of the people that was around then, you'd never seen anything like that before. And a lot of people, when they complain about the prequels, some people say, "Oh, too much action, not enough story." Other people say, "Too much story, not enough action." So I think it was never going to live up to people's expectations. And it's not that they individually are wrong. It's just to say that because so many people hate the prequels, the prequels are bad. No, it was never going to live up to anyone's expectations. And even if they are better, you're not going to think they're better because they didn't exceed the original trilogy in the way the original trilogy exceeded the nothing that came before. Which brings me to number 6, episode 4, which is a good movie. It goes a little slow. It has the big boring political scene, and there's an empty seat, which everyone says now is Krennic's seat from Rogue One. There's an empty seat in that political scene, and everyone says that's Krennic's seat, which is cool. It's great. Alright, so I'm halfway through my top 10 list. See, this is the reason I didn't want to do top 10 lists, is it's hard to manage the time. Because you don't want to just sit and go boop, 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 boop. And you want to have plenty of time for your last one, but you don't want to sit around afterwards and go boop, 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 boop. And, the way I do this, it's pre-recorded. I think I'm always going to have a main series that's pre-recorded. I may do some live recordings on the side. And not like on Twitch or anything, I'm just going to talk as I play. I may do some of that stuff on the side, but I'm not going to ever do... Because, really, sitting and talking like this is sort of the main reason, one of the reasons I want to do this. And the audio is bad. I know, I can't really fix it. I don't care enough. Like I said in the last segment, I just want to talk to nobody. I'm fine with that. I guess I'd rather talk to somebody, but I'm fine with talking to nobody. I'd rather talk to nobody than not talk at all. Anyway, so number 5. When it came out was my favorite one, but it has fallen very far. And that is episode 3. And it has the one moment, I would say, in the prequels I did not care for. And that's the big Darth Vader no. And it just doesn't make much sense. But it's a pretty cool movie. It doesn't quite have the big... I think when I was a kid I figured out this was the original trilogy in episode 1 that I based this on. But every Star Wars movie had a star fight, a lightsaber fight, in a land fight. And episode 3 had a bunch of little land fights during Order 66, but I tried to fit it in. I think it was the Battle of Utapau would I guess be the closest thing to the land fight of this movie, or Kashyyyk, but none of them really were that close to the fighting, and it's difficult because he made episode 2, which was the start of the Clone Wars, episode 3, which was the end of the Clone Wars. So you get to see the Clone Wars in the movies, which I guess is what people may have expected. They also expected to see Darth Vader hunting Jedi, but the main story beats happen at the beginning of the war and the end of the war. And maybe that's part of the problem with episode 1. Maybe they should have started the Clone Wars at episode 1, but it didn't. Then what would episode 2 be? Episode 2 wouldn't have any story beats. Any main story beats the way the beginning of the Clone Wars, the end of the Clone Wars do. I don't know. But it's a good thing to have the Clone Wars, and you already knew he was going to have a bunch of extra stuff. Maybe he was already playing the TV show. Maybe. And I think the first thing that came out about the Clone Wars was the book Shatterpoint, which was not very good. And it did not have the big epic battle. In fact, of the novels, which as I said before, are the only thing I was really into, of the novels, the only real major battle in the novels, everything else was just a small, one Jedi takes a few clones. The only one that was a major battle was the Bristolian conflict, which had Anakin leading a large army of clones to, and the world they chose was not an ecumenopolis, but it was the communications hub of the Republic, and that was sort of the world thing. And I think that's sort of taking the one environment world idea maybe a bit too far, saying this is the world where cell phones are. Doesn't really make much sense. Anyway, back to episode 3. It's dark. It has Darth Vader. It's a cool movie. But as time goes by, it sort of falls out of favor. And it was the first one I watched multiple times in theaters. I saw it 10 times. Pretty cool. And so let's go on to number 4. Number 4, episode 7. Great. It was the funniest, maybe. I remember laughing a lot at episode 3, but episode 7 was also very funny. I don't remember laughing at the other movies. Of course, I don't really remember the first time I saw the other movies that well. I'll get to them as I come to them. I guess, yeah, I'll get to them as I come to them. But it was pretty cool. Let's see. What to say about episode 7. I like there's more Star Wars. And I'm mad at George Lucas, because if I had known that he was going to make more Star Wars movies, I'd have become an actor. And also if I'd have known James Bond might be a girl, which hasn't happened yet, but it could. If I'd have known James Bond would be a girl, that'd be fun, because I could be a Bond man. I don't want to play James Bond, but it might be fun to play a Bond man. That would be cool. Just to play a little one-off Bond man character. I could be a Rod Sizemore. That'd be fun. Anyway. I can really nerd out, and that's what I'm going to do. And at first, the reason I heard that they wanted to keep wipe clean all of the original all of the expanded or extended, the EU, let's call it the EU, was to bring Chewbacca back to life so they could have him in the movie. Which I thought that was being a little fan servicey, having to keep the main characters in the movie. But what happened in the movie, you know, I don't really feel an obligation not to be a spoiler alert, because I don't have to. Spoiler alert to talk about this, I'm not going to. that's obviously not true. They don't feel the need to keep the old characters around. But I wonder what Chewbacca's role is going to be from now on. Anyway. But Chewbacca, it didn't have to die in the books. The way he died is he died when the moon crashed into the planet and the Dobian Basil. But Boba Fett drove himself into the Dobian Basil, jumped into the Dobian Basil itself, and survived. Surely if Boba Fett could survive the Dobian Basil and the moon landing on him, surely Chewbacca could survive just the moon landing on him. Don't you think? I think so. I mean, Chewbacca is just as awesome as Boba Fett. Oh, and there was a story, which is what I would have really loved. There was a short story in one of the things, and I really loved this as being like a sort of a death, quote-unquote, of Han Solo and Boba Fett. And the story is them over the years meeting up and having conflict. And the end, it just has them with their guns pointed at each other, and neither one of them is going to back down. I would love for that to have been the end of both of their stories, but it wasn't. So, number 3, episode 6. I remember seeing this one in the theater. Of course, I didn't see the one in '83. I saw the one that was re-released in theaters in '97, '98, something like that. I remember, for some reason, I was standing in the back of the theater. I guess I got to get popcorn. I remember the Emperor spraying Luke with the lightning. I remember that in the theater. And also another thing about going to see those, it happened over some period of time. I didn't watch them all right in a row. But I remember for episode 4, I couldn't read, and my dad had to read the crawl and the Jabba's words to me. But for episode 6, I could read, and I read the words to him. That was cool. But 6 is a good movie. It's very action-packed. It's one of the better movies. And so brings us to number 2. What do you think it's going to be? Think about this. If you think about it right now and see the 2 movies I haven't mentioned, you're probably already surprised. But in for a bigger surprise, number 2 is episode 5. So you know what number 1 is, and that's going to be a shock, and I'm going to mention that. Episode 5, probably most people's favorite. I Am Your Father is the one that's in that, and it's pretty cool. What else can I talk about it? Although Yoda's training on Dagobah, and this one has the weakest sort of the land not the land battles, the weakest of the space battles. It's just the Millennium Falcon flying through the asteroid belt. That's all the space battle it has, I think. But it has one of the best lightsaber fights and one of the best land battles on Hoth. So that's why it's number 2, you know? That's cool. So, not a big surprise now that you know what all the other ones are, but probably a big surprise when you saw this video. Number 1 is episode 2. It's amazing. Lightsaber fight. It's 3 lightsaber fights. It does all with Count Dooku, but the one between Anakin and Count Dooku, pretty cool. It's amazing. And the sort of grand finale with Yoda, it was a cool idea. Didn't really work that well, I guess. And it's like episode 5 where the space battle is really just flying through an asteroid field with Jango Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Although it's a little bit cooler than the one in episode 5. But the really cool thing is the Battle of Geonosis. As soon as Mace Windu comes up, first off, they have a big rodeo in the middle of the movie. That was awesome. And then as soon as Mace Windu comes up and sneaks up behind Count Dooku, that's awesome. They have that big arena battle, and that's so much fun. And then they go out, and all the clones are fighting the droids, and that's just amazing. And you talk about big battles, that's probably one of the biggest battles, bigger than anything we saw in the Clone Wars, and it was pretty cool. Anyway, that's all I can talk about now. I will see you next time. Bye.